Advanced Innovation Group, LA 9001. Through this video, we shall attempt to explain the auditable component of the ISO 9001 clause, Clause 8.2. Clause 8 Audit Guide. Clause Customer Communication and Requirements Determination. Clause 8.2.1 Customer Communication. Audit Focus. Verify that the organization has an effective process to communicate with customers across the life cycle of an order, from inquiry to delivery and feedback afterward. What to check. Requirement. What it means. Evidence. DOI. Providing information. How do you provide product service details to customers? B. Handling inquiries, orders, changes. How are customer orders, amendments, and inquiries recorded and managed? Order forms, emails, change logs. C. Obtaining feedback. How do you collect and act on customer feedback or complaints? Feedback forms, complaint register, survey analysis. Requirement. What it means, evidence. D. Customer property. Do you receive any customer-owned materials, tools, or data? How are they handled? Property logbooks, labels, return procedures. E. Contingency actions. Are there any specific customer requirements for risk handling or emergency scenarios? SLAs, contracts, contingency plans. Checklist summary. Clause 8.2.1. Audit point, evidence. Customer information provided clearly. Product data sheets, service brochures, orders and changes handled effectively. Email chains, updated POs, ERP entries. Customer feedback process in place. Feedback logs, review meeting records. Customer property managed responsibly. Labeled assets, handling SOPs, contingency plans defined if needed. Risk clauses in contracts, BCP documents. Clause 8.2.2. Determining the requirements for products and services. Audit focus. Confirm that all relevant requirements, explicit, implicit, legal, and internal, are defined before a product service is delivered, and that the organization can meet those requirements. What to check. Requirement. Sample questions. Evidence. A1. Define customer requirements. How do you define what the customer wants? Purchase orders, customer specs. A2. Statutory, regulatory requirements. How do you identify and comply with legal or industry standards? Regulatory compliance matrix. Licenses, certifications. A3. Internal requirements. What internal standards or expectations do you apply? Internal SOPs, quality plans. B. Ability to meet claims. How do you ensure you can meet all advertised or promised capabilities? Capability assessments, marketing reviews, test reports. 8 Checklist summary. Clause 8.2.2 Audit point. Evidence. Requirements clearly defined. Signed contracts, requirement specs. Legal regulatory needs considered. Industry compliance checklists, regulatory documents. Internal standards applied. Company policy, design rules. Claims are realistic and achievable. Test reports, capacity plans, marketing material approval. Pro tips for auditors. Trace a customer order from inquiry, quote, contract, delivery, feedback. Verify how requirements were captured and communicated. Interview customer-facing roles, sales, service, support, to confirm they understand what to communicate and how to handle changes or complaints. If customer property is used, like test fixtures, drawings, or samples, confirm it's clearly identified, tracked, and protected. Auditing ISO 9001:2015. Clause 8.2.3 and 8.2.4 involves evaluating how the organization reviews customer requirements before acceptance and how it manages changes to those requirements. This is essential to avoid miscommunication, non-conformance, or customer dissatisfaction. Here's a practical and thorough guide on how to audit these clauses. Audit Guide. Clause 8.2.3 and 8.2.4, Review and changes to requirements. Clause 8.2.3.1. Review of requirements before commitment. Audit focus. Ensure the organization conducts a thorough review of customer and internal requirements before agreeing to deliver any product or service. What to check in sample audit questions. Review requirement. Sample questions. Evidence. A. Customer-specified requirements. How do you verify delivery timelines, product features, and post-delivery support needs? Orders, contracts, meeting notes. B. Implied requirements. How do you determine what the customer didn't specify but is needed, e.g., industry standards? Lessons learned, risk assessments. C. Internal requirements. What internal requirements are applied to customer orders? Quality plans, company standards. D. Legal and regulatory requirements. How do you ensure compliance with applicable laws or regulations? Compliance checklists, approvals, licenses. E. Conflicting or change requirements. How are contract or order mismatches or updates handled? Change request forms, revise contracts. Ask, before accepting a new customer order, what steps are followed to ensure all requirements are clear and achievable? Clause 8.2.3.2. Retention of documented information. Audit focus. Ensure the organization maintains evidence of the review process and any new requirements identified during that review. What to check. Requirement. Evidence. A. Results of the review. Approved order reviews, sign-off forms, CRM logs. B. New requirements. Updated order specifications, revised project scopes, special instructions. Ask, where do you record the outcomes of customer requirement reviews? Clause 8.2.4. Changes to requirements. Audit focus. Verify that changes to requirements are properly evaluated and documented, communicated to relevant stakeholders. What to check in sample audit questions. Review requirement. Sample questions. Evidence. Change identification. How are customer-driven changes identified? Change request forms. Email approvals. Document updates. How do you update documentation when requirements change? Revised orders, updated specs, change logs, communication of changes. Who is informed when a change occurs? Email threads, meeting records, internal memos. Ask, can you show a recent example of a customer changing a requirement? How was it handled? Checklist summary. Clause 8.2.3 and 8.2.4. Audit point evidence to review done before accepting orders. Review checklists, approval forms. Customer and regulatory requirements verified. Contracts, regulatory documents. Conflicting requirements resolved. Change records, clarification logs. New or special requirements recorded. CRM entries, updated scope documents. Review results retained. Signed forms, system logs. Requirement changes controlled. Change logs, updated specifications. Relevant people informed of changes. Emails, meeting minutes, revised work instructions. Pro tips for auditors. Select a recent customer order or contract and audit the entire lifecycle. 1. Initial requirement gathering. 2nd, review and approval before acceptance. 3. Any mid-project requirement changes. 4. Communication trail and document updates.